Hey, and welcome back. This is Dr. Pedram of the Health Bridge, here with a special announcement. I know y'all have been really patient. We have had a few months now of trying to figure out what we're going to do with the show because there's been just a lot of movement in our lives. And so here's the deal. Sarah and I are not doing the show together from here on in because she's got books to write. I've got movies to make, we got a lot of stuff going on, and it's been really hard to coordinate her schedule with my schedule and the schedules of all these busy, wonderful people we keep bringing for you. So, love Sarah to death. We'll always love her. There's no drama in our house or any of that stuff. We're friends, but we just won't have time to do the show together. So I am carrying on the Health Bridge, and I'm going to bring on co-hosts, and I'm going to bring on other guests that are just wonderful and delightful, and I will make this a part of my service to you. And so that being said, we love Sarah, and we look forward to reading her next book and her multiple books coming in the future. She's prolific and she's a genius, and we will miss her. And here we go with the Health Bridge, episode number 1 in this new format, which is kind of like the old format minus Sarah. And we've brought in my good buddy, dear friend, Mark David. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Pedram. I'm so happy to be here with you, my friend.
It's great to see your face, man. So, we've really developed a wonderful friendship over the last couple of years, and there's a lot of people in the health space, a lot of people just saying, try my shit, right? And not having real kind of in-depth conversations about what the human condition is. And you've got this really refreshing voice in that space. And so, we've been talking a lot about food and diet and nutrition and all this stuff, and your relationship with that is a very refreshing one in the psychology of eating. And today I wanted to talk about the subject of orthorexia, okay, which is basically I'm so caught up in being healthy that now that's a problem. And so, look, I can't eat gluten. Rice has arsenic in it. Corn is GMO. Animals are, you shouldn't eat animals. They're taking up too much water, and you're horrible for killing things. And the soy is this, and the this is that, and the water is dirty. So what the hell can I eat? What do I do? How do I even engage with food when everything about food is stressful? This is something that I hear every single day. It's something I deal with all the time. You're like, shit, what can I eat here, right? And it's created a lot of stress and a lot of pressure on the system. And so I would love to get your perspective on that. And we're just gonna go kind of open format and talk about what this means and how we can interact with food.
What a lovely question. I think it's a great one. And again, I just want to underline, orthorexia is often defined as an obsession with healthy food, and by extension, an obsession with healthy practices. And I think one of the most important places to start with this is to first say that, there's a lot of people who live with that, and you'd never know it, and I might never know it. But that's the internal world that they're swimming in, and that's how they're managing their external world. So that person exists. And life for them is very narrow. It's in a narrow bandwidth. I also want to say that there's probably always a damn good reason for why we do the things we do. Even though those things might not be helpful to us, somewhere inside there's a good reason. So to me, when I look for what's a good reason in that behavior, it's probably the realization that we're living in a toxic world, and it seems to get more toxic. So, oh my goodness, I got to take care of myself with food, and I have to take care of myself with all the right products, because everything in it, virtually, that you can get in a supermarket, you're getting hundreds of human-made chemicals that never existed before 100 years ago. So what I want to say is there's a legitimate reason for somebody to be orthorexic.
Yeah.
To have that obsession.
It's a dirty world, man. There's a lot of garbage out there, but what that's done is, it's turned well-intentioned, either you could be one of those people who say, like, I just don't care. I'm just going to drive through McDonald's and have my sundae and it doesn't matter anyways, because it all sucks. Or you start to care, and then where does that end? I mean, how do you relax around food, and how do you stay vigilant and not be hyper vigilant in a way that becomes kind of obsessive?
Wow, I almost want to answer your question by saying you do that by choosing to do it. It's beautifully put. How do I be in relationship with food so it's not an obsession, and yet I can take care of myself, and yet I can relax into it? Really, to me, what you just sort of did was you outlined paradox. And you said to me, how can I live in a paradoxical world? And that's exactly it. We have to realize that there is a paradox, that on the one hand, I have to be really vigilant in this world about my health and my immunity and what comes into my system. And on another hand, I've got to relax and not worry so much, because that kind of stress can be more deleterious to my body than the stress of whatever the toxin is that I'm taking in. So we really need to mature, I think, in our consciousness. We need to mature in how we show up in the world and go, oh, that's the game I want to play.
It's tough. I mean, people come over for dinner and you want to break bread, right? And that's just, cultural traditions that have been going for thousands of years. I mean, I had Tom O'Brien over for dinner last night. You ain't breaking bread with that dude, right? And so what do you have? So you have lean proteins and vegetables, and you do the best you can. And one of the things we did is, I've really put a lot of effort into my backyard garden and having the soil be as healthy as possible. And so on one side of my fence, the street side, where there's like asphalt and car tires and all that stuff, I don't let my kid touch too many things. But in the backyard, I just let him go, like get muddy, just go. And so, like, how do you set up a safe zone in your life to be around things that are trustworthy and clean food sources, so that you can relax and enjoy meals, maybe, is a question to ask.
I love that question, and it feels like such a conundrum. It really does. It seems like it's a moment-to-moment moving target that we're being asked to track and hit. And again, I just want to get back to how, on the one hand, there's a brilliant reason. On the other hand, as you're pointing out, it's creating separation. Like, you and I can't hang together if, like, oh my God, what are we going to eat? And, does the candle have perfume in it? And there's that kind of challenge there of how do we come together again? And it really, to me, boils right back down to choice. When you travel, are you going to eat like the natives do? If you get invited into someone's home, are you making a choice in advance? Are you going to respect what they're eating, or are you going to limit yourself? And if you limit yourself, how much would you limit yourself?
Right.
So I think it's a great place to really question. And I don't know that there's this profound, simple answer. Oh, here's what you do to make this work. Because really what life is asking us is to grapple with this. Life is asking us to wrestle with this conundrum that has its benefits, has its drawbacks, and we're trying to figure out how do we navigate it. I don't like hanging around. I don't like hanging around intense orthorexic type people. Even though I think my inner orthorexic is probably pretty strong. But I sort of subdue it.
It's tough, man. It's very. So I had one of my best friends was a religious Jewish guy growing up, and it's like every time we went somewhere, he'd be like, well, they don't have fish, and you're like, just get over it. Like, and then you have to stop and be like, you know what? It is so much harder to be him than me right now. That there's definitely some. I got a lot of respect, and like over the years, there's so much more respect because he just kept drawing that line and making the right choice. But on the flip side, he was also a pain in the ass to hang out with, because we'd be like, okay, well, let's stop and get some food. He'd be like, well, I can't eat there. I can't eat there. I can't eat there. And it was just like the orthorexic individual was the kind of the low denominator of what everyone else had to deal with. And that's happening everywhere now in all circles.
And it's probably been happening for a while with people, like you say, maybe they keep kosher, or somebody has a certain food allergy that's very clear and very pronounced. So that's going to affect everybody sitting around at the table.
Yep.
Probably the one major company that really had an early lead on this whole conversation around allergy and what you should eat, could eat, can eat was the Disney company. Because what they realized was they were leaving a ton of money on the table for visitors who couldn't come because the kids had food allergies. And this was a huge amount of people. So Disney redesigned all its restaurants at every Disneyland and Disney World. And they had trained chefs come in there and teach people how to cook, allergen-free meals.
Great.
Depending on what they're allergic to, gave them a whole system. Here's the piece of paper that you give them. And the net result was Disney became this god for parents of allergic kids.
Well, and that's just it, right? Because my friend who kept kosher, power to him, right? And the person who knows that they shouldn't eat gluten and doesn't, they get subjected to ridicule, right? Like, come on, what's wrong with you? Eat like a man, all this kind of crap that happens. And now Disney creates an opportunity to say, no, I'm just going to order from a menu and someone cares for me and that works, right? Not every place is like Disney.
Here we are in the health bridge, and health here is such an important piece of the puzzle, because in a way, to me, health is like the new religion for so many people. It is very religious in nature. Is it a better religion than the old ones? I don't know. But what I do know is that we're living in a poison world. And it's just kind of the way it is. And so many of our major diseases are increasing across the board. So let's push the pedal to the metal a little bit on being aware of, like, what planet do I live on? What's happening in the big picture? And how do I choose to participate knowing, I got to die of something anyway at some point, So might the piece of bread kill me that I eat? Probably not. Might the piece of tuna with the mercury in it, is that going to kill me? Probably not. I take a bunch of, natural metal chelating supplements.
Well, you can offset it, but I think a big piece of this that most of the physicians out there, it's very easy for us to say no, 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 right? You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't have fun, you can't have sex, you can't do anything because everything's bad for you. And then people are like, screw that, I'm just gonna go party, right? And the essence of what is that kind of overbearing, overarching psychological kind of dampening field is that stress about not being able to feel free. So really, how can we have a certain degree of freedom becomes a question, right? In how we live and how we enjoy and taste life. And still, not eat a car tire, right? Not, take stuff that is overtly bad for us. And where's that middle ground? So it's not crazy, but it's also not self-destructive.
As you were asking that, I was thinking about the difference between motivation and inspiration. And what happens, I believe, is a lot of people will get motivated to do healthy things, and sometimes highly motivated. Highly motivated often means highly stressed. Highly motivated often means driven by fear. We take this word called motivation and we turn it into like a deity. But I'm not a big motivation worshiper. I think it's important. I think it's great. But motivation is short-lived, and it's easy for it to get co-opted by our fear. And when we're driven by fear, we're creating stress response. We're creating stress chemistry. We are generating some of the most damaging molecules to human biology. Those are the ones we self-generate via a constant low-level stress response day in and day out. So we have a slightly different opportunity here, which is to inspire ourselves. And if I'm inspired to eat healthy, that's different from motivated to eat healthy. Because inspiration to me is more expansive. So it's really training the mind. I like, honestly, it's just training the mind to go, oh, I'm reaching for this thing because I'm really motivated to drink. Okay, if I'm damn thirsty, I'm going to do that. But then, it's organic cherry juice from Colorado. And I got so inspired when I saw this in the store, like, wow, nice looking bottle. It's organic. It's from the state that I live in. I was so inspired. I bought 3 bottles. And that felt good. Like, wow, I'm supporting a local organic farmer. And wow, I love fresh cherry juice, whatever it is. So find the places where there's inspiration, because when you have inspiration around your diet and around food, you won't get sucked into perfectionism. You won't get sucked into fear, because those cannot exist in an inspired state.
The inspired state seems to be something that has been lost to many, right? You get your ears boxed in enough times and you're just like, man, this sucks. Mom and dad don't let me have any fun, right? And that joy of being a kid is gone. You see it in the kids all the time, right? Kids used to run around the streets. Now it's like, there's child molesters, there's horrible people out there, like stay here behind closed doors and play with these plastic toys. And I feel like we're kind of in the same position in society in a lot of ways, where that inspiration is something that kind of bubbles up from within and is allowed to travel and play. And around food, that's just, everything's restrictive. And I love that you're drinking that cherry juice, right? Like I get the same thing with kombucha. I get the same thing with my sheep yogurt. It's like, okay, so I have a cow dairy allergy and I know that it hurts when I drink that stuff. So what can I do? Sheep? Great. Now I'm enjoying yogurt with my non-gluten-free muesli or whatever it is. And still letting breakfast be an enjoyable time of day. Right, and I think that's where the Europeans really got us, right? Like they sit down, they enjoy their meals, and their stress levels are lower, right? They appreciate food.
It feels that in this country, in this culture, United States of America, we've kind of removed a lot of that which would be inspiring. We've removed quality food from the table. We tend to remove quality time from the lifestyle. We've removed quality art and quality anything, really. And there is a lot of plastic, and there is a lot of junk, and there is a lot of nonsense on the airwaves. So from that place, it could be hard to be inspired, especially if you're living in a drab city and you've never been out in nature, or you never jumped in a clean river. It's harder to find inspiration. Some people naturally have the things they're inspired about, but inspiration from that place, if you know you're lacking in vitamin I, then it is your duty to go track it down. Because if you're not living in an inspired world, meaning if your world is not inspired, then life is going to suck. It's not going to be very interesting, and you will find yourself on depression medication at some point, chances are, because there's no inspiration. But we have to stalk it. We have to track it down. You have to go look for it, even if wherever you need to go, whatever you need to do to find what inspires you. Once you light your inspiration candle in one place, it just kind of lights up the whole room. It gives it a glow. So every aspect is touched.
I love that. And there's some practical tips there too, is, a lot of people who start going to restaurants and have all this stress about like, what am I going to eat? What am I going to order? They're going to make fun of me and all that, are still in this rote mentality of being like, they put this menu in front of me. So which one of these 9 choices do I have to deal with? Instead of pulling the guy over and being like, hey, I just want some chicken and some broccoli. make it happen, please, right? And most kitchens can do that, right? And it's like, how weird is that? That's not weird at all, but we're so afraid of the shame and the public ridicule and being an inconvenience or a nuisance that we're willing to poison ourselves and not have fun. And we feel like because we're not ordering from like the 12 options that they've put in front of us, that somehow we're some sort of like weirdo and different. And that has nothing to do with any of it, right? You're there to be with your friends. You're there to enjoy a good time. The meal is just kind of almost secondary and it should nourish you. So if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I relate to that, just think about that, right? You're not there. The stress shouldn't be about what you're ordering. That's inconsequential. Order what's going to make your body feel good and move on. Enjoy your friends.
One of the reasons why I love that is it's an inspired statement about one's relationship with one's body. It's saying on the one level that I'm choosing to have a relationship with my body where I care for it because that's really interesting to me. That's really fascinating to me. And you know something? I so have no stuff around that and I have no mind shadow around that. I don't care. I'm not going to use it to create separation. And if that's my attitude, it's going to be harder for others around me to feel as if I'm creating separation in those moments. So oftentimes what's generating, think of the people that you sit down to a meal with and they are specific about what they're ordering, but you could feel the tension, you could feel the fear. And that's what you're dining with. That's what's in your assimilative atmosphere, for goodness sakes. So it's really always gets back to human consciousness and asking ourselves, what am I bringing to the table? If I want to have a meal that is bountiful and healthful and supports me, then I have to be that kind of person. I have to be bountiful and I have to be healthful and I have to be supportive. Because a lot of people, they're so hungry to get something from the food. This has to protect me, or this has to cleanse me, or this has to make me lose weight. We want something from the food. And that might be okay, because food is medicine. But at the same time, one of the invisible medicines is when you deliver into the food what you're asking from it. So when you cook the food with love, you're putting that medicine into it. And that's what you're getting back. If you cook it with fear, oh my God, I can't put this in, I can't put that in, because if I put this in and that in, I'm going to get all... So if I'm cooking that same food with fear, then there's the recipe, for goodness sakes. That's what's going into it. So food helps us choose how we want to live on planet Earth.
It's so beautiful that we can choose and elect that, right? So I don't do well with dairy. Great, there's coconut oil. Fine. You can still make delicious meals and not feel sorry for yourself. And I think that's the part. I know a lot of people that just, and I'm guilty of this. It's like, I feel so sorry for myself. I wish I could just whop that pumpkin pie, right? But knowing what that pumpkin pie does to me on the tail end of that, it's just like, why the hell would I ever do that to myself? Like I'm going to sleep through half my life if I eat that. And so what is a healthy pumpkin pie recipe that has ingredients that I can eat? I've had so much fun doing that and really kind of done a judo flip on some of the foods that have been restricted from my life and made them fun again. There's a point I want to talk about here quickly, and that's the other end of this energy. You're taking on these calories, you're taking on these nutrients, you're taking on this food, and onboarding them into this ship that is your life. And my question to our listeners, and I'd love for you to kind of play with this with me here, Mark, is what are you doing with the food that you're ingesting? What are you doing with the life that this animal, this plant, this vegetable is giving you and lending to your life force? And how big and how awesome is your life to carry this through and burn it and deserve it? Because a lot of us, I think, we're just so stuck that our food is also stuck and our calories are stuck and we get heavy and it gets heavy and life is heavy because we're not stepping into a kind of a greater idea for ourselves. And I'd love to hear your take on that.
It's a really wide question because it asks us to look at again, how we want to live life and how we want to offer ourselves to the world. Let's put it that way. So food is an offering. Food is the manna from heaven. Food comes from the gods. We need food to survive. So in the olden days, when people were in survival, and you know something, those days are probably right now as well all over the planet. There's a lot of starving people. In fact, it's about three people die every minute of starvation on this planet. So they are dropping as we speak. So there's a tremendous survival instinct on the planet, in the body, in our history for food. At the same time, we have a place inside of us where we have to ask, okay, so now I have all this bounty. I have this healthy food. If you're orthorexic in any way, shape, or form, then guess what? You're one of the kings or queens of this earth, because chances are you could afford to be. Because you're eating, because you have a roof over your head, because you read books, because you get on the internet, because you have enough time and energy and education to care and to research about these things. So there's something very beautiful in that. But then the question becomes, here's my healthy body. Now, what's it for? Am I going to just like walk up and down the street and like show it to you? It's so what am I going to do with all that bounty? What am I going to do with all that energy? Meaning, why are you here? What's your purpose? Get to work. Start saving the world in your little way. Start bringing in a little bit of light in your little way. Start doing something that turns the tide of craziness and nonsense on planet Earth, so we can start actualizing who we are as one people. I think that's our task that's before us. So if we kind of spiritualize it in that way, then food ought to be in service. My healthy body ought to be in service. If it's not in service to something, orthorexia happens because we're not channeling that energy of health.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to be perfectly healthy. You could be this much healthy and contribute and save the world. So it's we don't have to be these like lean, mean, fit, calorie burning machines. You don't have to have the perfect weight to give of our body's energy and give of our life force and do some good here.
The way we plug ourselves into life and making our lives awesome and making our lives meaningful and special is really the healthy lifestyle, the healthy act that then gets backfilled by healthy food choices, because it just helps you stay on your mission. And I think because we're putting the cart before the horse and we're feeding a car without a destination, we're just driving around the desert, everyone's wondering, what kind of fuel it is that's causing the problem, and no one's looking at the navigator, right? And so looking at life a little differently and finding a through channel for those calories, finding a through channel for that food, and having your life expression be the healthy piece, and then everything else would kind of follow suit and come in tow with that. I think that's a fresh way of looking at it, and I thank you for drawing that example, because that's cool.
It's how I live my life. It really is, and it's been how I've been living it for a while. Meaning, I can get so sucked into the health thing because I was an unhealthy kid, because I was raised on every nasty food and every nasty prescription drug and all of it. And so when I started changing my diet for the better, magic happened. My health started to change. And that's a powerful connection, especially when you develop that connection at a young age, that what goes into my body impacts my energy and my mood and all these symptoms that I don't want to have. That's golden nugget wisdom for the mind. And it is inspiring. And then at some point we tend to lose that place. And our eating isn't really in service to anything. So we have a great task ahead of ourselves, and it's the question, and it's a powerful question to just hold. And the powerful question is, what am I going to do with all this healthy energy? how am I going to give back to the world? Because the orthorexic mentality is taking. And the remedy for orthorexia is just giving. It's giving it away. You might have even used the terms before, just kind of locked up, and orthorexia just feels like this tight prison. And really the prison is that we're not giving. We're just stealing energy from the universe.
It's funny, I see it a lot in the health and wellness space, and you and I have lived there for a while, is all these people that are incredibly meticulous about how they eat and what they do, and then put a couple drinks in them, and they're like, 3/4 of the way through a cheesecake, because it's been so repressed and so dammed up that it's just like, you know what, now I'm a sinner, baby, right? And it's just not a healthy stance, because it's not a balanced one from the very start. And I'm not saying don't eat things that poison you, but I'm saying it's the stress that envelops it, which is the challenge. It's the oh, I feel sorry for myself, woe is me kind of mentation that goes along with it, that makes even the best of food poisonous, because we're restricted, as you say.
Well, we are living in a time, fortunately, when there's enough room in the atmosphere for us to have this kind of conversation. What a beautiful thing, because this to me is a practice in sort of collective evolution, where we're hanging out going, okay, how do we evolve ourselves? How do we get better at this earth game? How do we get better at being in a body? How do we get better at being in a body without being a tight-ass jerk? How do I get better at being a citizen and a friend and a coworker for people? Great questions.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have the answers in this next 5 minutes, but these are the questions that are way more important to ask than what do I eat to lose weight, right? Like it's everything's asked backwards, and so you look at this health gestalt, and everyone's out there trying to like sell their system or their program or their kind of like bucket of protein or whatever it is, and that's not the answer to the problem. I mean, sure, it might be great quality protein, and that's just a wonderful swap for what you were having, for breakfast. But that's not the answer. That's not what's fixing the problem. The fixing, and you call your thing psychology of eating. It's about fixing the way you look at the whole game, so that there's life back in the equation. It feels right.
And that fixing and changing and transforming the way we see the whole game and the way we play in the game, fantastically enough, that in return impacts our physiology in profound ways. Because when I start to relax into life, what you're describing is a relaxation into life. You cannot relax into life without literally being in a relaxation response. When we are in physiologic relaxation response, parasympathetic nervous system dominance, we are automatically in the optimum state of digestion and assimilation and day in, day out calorie burning. That's where your metabolic heat comes in. And it sounds counterintuitive, because we think, well, no, wait a second, if I'm like, exercising really intensely for an hour, that's when I'm a lean, mean calorie burning machine. And yeah, but something, most humans don't exercise for more than about an hour per day intensively. You're doing all your digesting and burning of your calories the other 23 hours of the day. So what I want to say is simply that when we relax into our life and we're relaxing into food, we are literally changing the body. We are kind of decoding how the body best functions. So yeah, you and I function amazing under stress, but that stress is meant to be for the moments when the lion is chasing you, as opposed to every day I'm walking around as if the lions are chasing me. That creates a chemistry, that creates symptomology, that leads to disease, that leads to unwanted eating behaviors, that leads to unwanted cravings and addictions. So again, we got some great work to do on self.
Yeah, and you know what? It's the most interesting subject to everyone out there is themselves. So, Mark, we're out of time. I love everything that you're doing, and I love the idea of maybe being able to extend this conversation out and just kind of punch back in and out of it over the course of the next few months, because it's a juicy one. And for our listeners, I'm going to be playing with the format. We'll have very kind of like doctory, like this is what's up with gluten conversations. Then we'll have kind of free-form conversations like this and a few other ones. And I'd love to hear back from you just to see what's working for you and what is resonating with you in the way we're doing this, because it's here as a service, as a public service. I'm doing this to help bring people like Mark and help bring people with very important things to say and share them with you. So Mark David, how can people find you?
What a great question. They could find me at psychologyofeating.com. If you spell psychology right the first time, you really should get some kind of special prize. So psychologyofeating.com, that's where you can learn about us and our world. And, we have a great professional training coming up. We train people to be eating psychology coaches. It's a distance learning program. People from all over the world join in. And you can email us at info@psychologyofeating.com, and we can connect with you, answer any of your questions. There's also a free video series on our homepage. So when you get to the homepage, you can enter your name and email and get a free video series where I yak away about eating psychology and why I'm so enthused about it.
Awesome, man. You do some of the best work I've seen out there, and you've been doing it for years and helped a lot of people. And I know a lot of your graduates, and they're pretty cool. So thank you so much for what you do. Thanks for this conversation, and I look forward to contacting you about more of this stuff. As soon as something comes up that I think is a Mark David question, I'm going to pester you, okay?
Oh, please do. And Dr. Pedram, this has been so great. You are, after this conversation, you're officially my favorite interviewer conversationalist by far. Yeah.
Thank you. That means a lot because I know you've been on the circuit. So thank you. Must mean that the tangerine caffeinated tea this morning did its thing.
There it is. It's good thing we're orthorexic.
That's it. All right, man. I love you. Thank you all for listening, and see you in the next show.